Let's get to our guy, Gino Cammilleri of the Locked On Eagles podcast at GC24_football on Twitter, co-host of the Locked On Eagles podcast, along with Louis DiBiase. Gino, thanks so much for taking the time to join us today, man. Thanks for your patience as well with all the breaking news.
Oh, absolutely. As somebody that's under the Howie Roseman tree here in Philadelphia, we're always used to things just happening out of nowhere. I was coming back from the CGS All-Star game when they hired Nick Sirianni. I had to do the pod right in the airport. So it just happens. But I am glad that week one, we will no longer have to face Julio Jones.
That's right.
After holding him for 4 straight downs in the NFC divisional matchup a couple years ago. I never want to play him again. He just always gives me so much anxiety watching him. I'm happy we don't have to defend him, but man, Tennessee, go out there and win that division so it helps out the Eagles pick that they got from the Colts last year for Carson Wentz. So I'm fully on board with that Titans move.
There you go. It's a really great choice.
Gino, good morning, my friend. Thank you so much for joining us here in today's episode, Locked On NFL Sunday. We're talking a little bit about wide receivers today. It's been really wide receiver centric focused, and so far, you take a look at the addition of Devontae Smith now to the Eagles. We look at the overall prospects right now of the Eagles offense. A lot of changes. Nick Sirianni as the new offensive coordinator. Actually, as the new guy for them in general, he's going to more than likely call the offense as the head coach. But the question I have for you. We haven't seen much of a commitment so far to Jalen Hurts just yet. Is there any specific reason as to why, or are they just going into things with tempered expectations and hoping that they can build up to that, especially with Jalen Reagor, and now you have the addition now of Smith at the wide receiver position? What does this do for Philadelphia?
Yeah, so when you look at it, I think the one element that Nick Sirianni has really kind of instilled in every time that he has talked is that there's going to be competition. Jalen Hurts is going to win the job. I mean, I don't want to see Joe Flacco. I don't think anybody wants to see Joe Flacco. And Jalen Hurts, he is an asset that we took with a top 2 pick. He was the 53rd overall selection. He is a guy who at least needs 10 to 15 more games to evaluate. In my opinion, with a full offseason, with rejuvenated weapons, with an offensive line that is fully healthy now, Jalen Hurts is going to take that position, and it's his to lose. I think by week 10, if we can sit here and say, okay, Jalen is the guy for next year, that's great. But at the same time, if you realize that he isn't the guy, you have steps forward that you could take now with what you've done in the draft, what you have done in free agency. I think they've addressed a lot of their issues more proactively than they have in the past. A lot of their past picks were luxury picks. Now they're making picks out of necessity to grow a team with regardless of who the quarterback is. But I believe they've done everything to give Jalen Hurts and Jalen Reagor and Devontae Smith and the young group of guys that they have on offense everything they need to be able to evaluate this roster. And I ultimately believe 2021 is an evaluation season. Who are we taking forward? We've cut a lot of this quote-unquote dead weight from the Super Bowl era that no longer really had it in them to keep playing. We know that Zach Ertz is kind of on the outs. A team that, hey, Tennessee, you want a tight end? Now that Jonu's gone, get to calling if you're in the trading mood on Zach Ertz. But when it comes down to it, it's a young team with a young quarterback, with a young coach. The first few weeks of the season, they might surprise people. But I just want to see consistency. I want to see competition, and I just want to see this team be able to hold themselves accountable for once and not really point fingers, just go in and say, this is our job. We didn't do what we had to do Monday through Saturday, and that's why we lost on Sunday, or that's why we won on Sunday. And I really think Nick Sirianni has been the leader at his age that I don't think many people had expected.
Yeah.
But clearly I think it's his team. He's saying everything right. He really wants to put these guys in the position to do what they do well, which to somebody who comes from a scouting background, it's music to my ears. I just want to see this team be able to evaluate players, because last year and the year before that, with so many injuries, you just have more question marks than you did 2 years ago. We're sitting here. Do we have a left tackle of the future? What are we going to do at cornerback number 2? Do we have a running back 2 on the roster now, and who is it going to be? There are so many questions with this team, but those questions are getting filled up, and I think the clouds have cleared the last 6 months to really see what our path is going forward.
It's great to hear. And I love what you're saying about Nick Sirianni. I mean, as somebody that covers Sean Payton has very much with the New Orleans Saints that same type of idea, right? Like everybody that comes in, that joins the roster, there's a vision and there's the opportunity to put them in a position to where they're able to do what it is that they do best, as opposed to trying to, square peg, round hole any of these players. What has been the feedback, or let's say the temperature around Nick Sirianni? Because as he was hired, there were a lot of negative, think pieces written all about it. The video went viral of his first press conference, perhaps undeservedly so. What has been the temperature around Nick Sirianni and what he's brought to Philadelphia Eagles so far, now that he's actually in the building?
So the first thing that really popped off to me was that Jeffrey Lurie trusted this individual. And he's a guy who really brands the Eagles around loyalty. You've seen that Howie Roseman has been there for so long. They like to keep their guys in-house. You have Brandon Graham, Fletcher Cox. A lot of these guys are on their second and third contracts. They like to have guys that are loyal and buy into the system. And I love what you said. He is finally doing what a coach should do and putting these guys in a square peg in a square hole, which you should have done all along. There's no reason that Jalen Hurts should be running the same type of offense that Carson Wentz was, or even Nick Foles was. And Doug Peterson, it kind of got to the point where he was more scheme over personnel, and he just tried to keep doing the things that worked when they really hadn't. And Nick Sirianni, he comes from Indianapolis, where you had 3 different quarterbacks of 3 different calibers, of 3 different athletic profiles and 3 different skill sets the last 3 years. Who better than to take this team and build it around whatever the quarterback is? But when you look at what people are saying, the rookies are super high on him, talking about the whole rock, paper, scissors thing. He measures competition. He always wants to compete. And to me, what he said in his press conference the other day, that you have to compete to get better at competing. So doing little things like throwing the tetherball football like a jugs machine, having the cornerback's foot race, and doing what the players are supposed to do at their respective positions is everything you want a coaching staff to do. And Brandon Graham has spoken highly of Nick Sirianni. He had said that you could really feel the juice from him. He's always in the practices with the players. He's a younger guy. He could actually run routes with the guys. So to me, he's actually building that family element that we thought they had in 2017, but once we heard what really happened and slipped through the cracks, we knew that that team wasn't as cohesive as we thought. I believe, and I'm a firm believer in, you can get places in any aspect of life with people who buy in and have the same mentality. Sure. Everything that they have done this offseason, Nick Sirianni at head coach, bringing in the 2 Bama guys as your first draft picks, bringing in some of these older veterans like Ryan Kerrigan who know what to do and who know how to be professionals and have come from cultures that have been implemented into the NFL through Alabama and through a lot of these better teams, because college becomes the NFL, and it's an ebb and flow of how that works. And now you have guys in place that if I'm a wide receiver behind Devontae and I see him getting 200 reps on the jugs machine after practice, I'm going to say, okay, I probably need 300 to 400 reps on the machine because I'm not as good as Devontae. And they want to breed that competition. They put a ping pong table in the meeting room, and they're doing ping pong games after their meetings in the meeting room just to get guys juiced up for practice. And to me, you should want to have that mentality because you're in the most competitive league and arguably one of the top 5 hardest leagues to get into in the world. You want to have guys that are there to compete week in and week out. And Nick Sirianni says that. You hear what he talked about with his high school football back to Southwestern days in Western New York. His family is just, it's a hotbed of talent down there. And he comes from that long lineage of a football family. He played football. He knows what the guys have to do in the locker room. And he's giving them the respect that they deserve. And rightfully so, he's getting respect back. And I want to see that continue throughout the season and just put those guys in a position to win, because this team has too much athleticism and explosion year over year compared to last year to not be a better team on both offense and defense. And the old adage goes, if you out-hustle your opponent, you can win a lot of games, and that's what's going to happen for the Eagles. And that tells you a lot about these guys, if they have bought in or if they are out. And if they're out, see you later. If they're bought in, let's move forward together.
Yeah.
That's super important too. I think in anything, whether it be football, whether it be business or life, I think the culture that you have as an organization is the most important thing. And so that's something that was obviously lacking with Philadelphia with Doug Peterson and obviously Schwartz as the DC. Everything in Philadelphia was headed down a downward spiral. Sirianni, being a young guy, has a chance to really connect with players. And that's the most important aspect about coaching. Yes, the NFL is a business, but you have to connect with the guys that you're coaching, or else, as you mentioned, you're not going to get that buy-in. I know that as a coach myself and as a guy who's played on many teams, it is super important to have that value in your locker room. So, yes, that is great. I mean, we even saw that with Joe Judge last year with the Giants, and he got trashed by people. What is he doing? You know what? Ping pong may seem a little unorthodox, but there's a meaning behind it. There's a reason why. It may be a laughingstock to people outside that really don't understand the concept of it, but it's super important. Team building is the most important thing. And it looks like the Eagles are headed on that track, and especially in a division where the Washington football team, they're much better. They have a strong defense. The New York Giants, they got better this offseason. The Eagles, at this point, I think, are in a position. They need to build with Sirianni, even if it takes 1 or 2 years to get to maybe where they want to be. I think they have the right guy there.
I totally agree with you. And I think the team building element, above all, is going to take you far. I look at a team in Buffalo, for example. Like the last 3 years, they have just been all about this Sean McDermott culture, this Brandon Beane culture. And a team for 20 plus years that never made the playoffs is now a consistent playoff / Super Bowl contender.
Right.
We thought the new norm that Doug Peterson was going to bring after they won the Super Bowl was exactly that. And we saw that didn't work out. And that becomes, okay, why did that happen? Because they didn't buy in. They didn't trust Doug. They didn't trust the management ahead. Now I feel like Howie has turned a new leaf. You have a new head coach where nobody is given anything. Everybody's going to have to earn their spot, where as opposed to the last few years, it's, okay, Alshon Jeffrey, you're back after missing a full season worth of work, but we're going to throw you out there anyway and not really evaluate our young talent, which isn't how you succeed in the NFL. Cody, you're a Denver fan right now. I mean, the team is as young as any team in the NFL. Imagine if they just brought out a veteran to take snaps from a guy like Jerry Jeudy, for example, at the wide receiver position, or even a guy like Sutton, for example. They did that. They took our number one receiver, our number one young receiver in Jalen Reagor off the field to play a guy like Alshon. Now it's put the young guys on the field. Can they run? Can they win? Can they compete? That's what this team is. And drafting 2 Alabama guys right out the gate when you hadn't drafted an Alabama player in 20 plus years, to me, that speaks more about the culture and the want to win more than anything that they have done this offseason. And I really think it echoes every move that they have made. And I'm glad you said you liked their offseason, because I don't think a lot of people have really given them the credit that they have deserved with a lot of these 1-year moves, which they might seem like Band-Aids and Ryan Kerrigan. But you can't just be the Cleveland Browns of 2015 or 16 when they had that young team, no veterans, they lose every game. You need veterans on this team to tell your guys how to win, what to do Monday through Saturday, what to do on the field. If I'm a guy right now, like a young player in Josh Sweat who's coming into his second contract, or any of the edge guys that they drafted last year, I'm talking to Brandon Graham and Ryan Kerrigan as much as possible every single day to learn to know what it takes to be that good at that age. Because that's ultimately what you want your draft picks to do. You want them on your second, third, and fourth contracts. Be a team like the Saints with Mickey Loomis, who trusts the guys that they bring in. They're fair to the guys that they have in the building, and they're not trying to just go out and compile a great team. They're trying to compile great people as well as a great performance on the field, which is it isn't just put the best guys out there. Put the best people out there is ultimately what it comes down to.
Definitely. Yeah, no, I have enjoyed their offseason a ton, and I think that we don't give enough credit to Philadelphia based on those 1-year contracts without understanding that every team is subject to the salary cap drop. So the 1-year contracts became something that was a part of just trying to navigate that situation. So I'm loving it. And Gino, it's always a pleasure to have you here on the show, man. Y'all can follow Gino on Twitter at GC24_football. You can catch him and his co-host Louis DiBiase over at the Locked On Eagles podcast every Monday through Friday. Always a pleasure, buddy. Take care, and we'll see you here again soon.
Hey, I appreciate you guys. You know, I'm always welcome to come on. And Cody, I can't wait to see you in Power Field at Mile High in a few months when the Eagles take on Denver. I'm excited, man.
It's going to be fun, my man. I appreciate you. And keep up the amazing work you're doing over there at the Locked On Eagles podcast.
All right, guys. Have a good one. Thank you.
See you, buddy.